Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show.
Welcome to Consulting Leaders Podcast, a place where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your own practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, John Degnan. Join me as we talk with the best consultants in their niche. Today, we welcome Jonny Staker. Jonny's the founder of Vanquish and a multi-exited entrepreneur who has advised everyone from Sequoia-backed founders and Fortune 500 executives. In this episode, we break down how consultants can win better clients, price with confidence, and build authority in a world where content is losing its edge. Jonny, welcome.
Thanks, John. Pleased to be here.
Yeah, we appreciate you being here too. Can you tell us more about yourself?
Where do you start? So, yeah, I mean, you covered it really. So, been in business feels like 100 years now, so since I was in my 20s. Entrepreneurial from a young age, didn't really like working for anybody, so I always say I've never really had a job. And, sold my first business in my late 20s. And went on to run a UK P&L on their behalf, so that was quite fun to cut my teeth in M&A, learn everything from those salty old dogs about how to buy and sell businesses and, multiples and all those kinds of fun things really. So did that, went off and after my non-compete decided, corporate wasn't for me. I didn't like somebody telling me what kind of car I could drive and, what kind of vacation time I could have. So, that entrepreneurial thing just always stuck with me. And I went off and built another company in another category completely outside of non-compete. And that was really my foray into America. So we ended up doing really well in America. We grew that to about $68 million in revenue. So that was a really fun ride. Most of it was America. You and I were talking previously about my time in America. So the US is, has always been good to me and holds a strong place in my heart. So I still do tons of business over there and so on. So I suppose you could say I got lucky. Some of this is always luck. I always say that best will in the world, some of this is always luck. But my last business, I kind of hit a point where I hit this inflection point where I didn't know I wanted to go and employ tons of staff anymore, and I didn't want to do the big scale thing. You've only got so many of those cycles in you. Usually they're like 7-year cycles. And so I said it'd be pretty cool to take what's in my head, to take 20 odd years of what I know and go and apply it. I've heard about this consulting thing. Apparently people make money doing it. So So could I do that? So that was a massive pivot, but I got lucky because I decided to sell my last company to a competitor who absorbed us, but it was right before COVID, so it was 2019. So had I have stuck it at it, I would have probably lost everything. I would have lost, the business. But so that was my foray into the world of consulting.
So as a multi-exited founder, transitioning to consulting, you walk the walk. People listen when you talk, right?
Yeah, I like to think so. I think that's a big part of it. A lot of my work centers around that, authority, credibility, relevance. And I think people hire us increasingly in this world and the noisy space that we're all kind of trying to coexist in. They hire us because they want to do something we've done, or they admire something we've done, or they trust what we've done. So it certainly helps.
Absolutely. And then you found yourself not just from a founder experience, but your intuitivity as well as a consultant.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think that's the difference between, coming out of this kind of infomarketing era and having AI, and I don't want to talk too much about AI. I think everybody's tired of hearing it, but I think in our space it's important because it's the judgment piece. I mean, to some extent, you can get access to all the knowledge that you need. That's why AI is great. But what it doesn't have is empathy and judgment. And so being able to adapt on the fly and understand a situation, know how to apply that kind of flat knowledge is the difference.
Interesting. AI aside, is there any specific problems that you need to solve today that you struggle with?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Not really. I think, I've reached a point where I've got it just the way I want it. My biggest problem before was the scale thing. Everybody wants scale, but they don't really understand the implications of scale and what it means. And so for me, I was a prisoner a lot of the time and a lot of my life to the businesses I ran in favor of money and income and growth and scale, and that's what a lot of people do. So, for me, this journey has been about reaching equilibrium and having a fulfilling life, which enables me to help others, help myself, and help my family by being present and being able to serve them too. So, I mean, my life right now is just the way I want it.
Do you have a nice work-life balance?
Yeah, man. I work probably 20 hours a week out of my garden office, and it's fantastic. It's it's night and day to where I might have been 10 years ago.
How big is your organization?
So it's small, purposefully small. There's me and an assistant right now, and that's it. That's the way I want it.
Okay. And who are your ideal clients today for Vanquish?
So my focus is on expertise-led companies. So by that, it's fairly self-explanatory, but people who sell, knowledge as the primary source of IP, people who sell experience, credibility. It's led by that. So, those might be consultancies, advisories, they might be agencies who are heavily led by the decision making and not just the implementation. So those types of businesses, because I believe that those are the ones that will endure through everything that we're kind of facing now. So I'm passionate about those types of people and businesses.
Given that your content is commodity now, how are you thinking about marketing your own business today?
So obviously at this stage, a lot of my business is referral and inbound. I'm lucky in that sense that I did the hard reps early on, and I'm fairly well known in my circle, and I have a book which did really well. I have a lot of credibility pieces out there which you can go off and look at and make your own decisions. So, but that's kind of time and compounding. So a lot of my business is inbound and referral, but the rest of it, I believe in the flywheel approach, as I'm sure you do, which is I'm on this interview now because people will see it and think about me in this situation. I'm aware of that. So things like this feed that flywheel. The content that I produce feeds that flywheel, the books, the articles and so on. So all of that feeds it. But to me, good old fashioned outbound, slow manual outbound is still king, and I think will continue to be the more noisy it gets.
You mentioned your book, The Frame. Can
Yeah.
you tell us about it?
Yeah. So co-authored with Justin Michael, who you may be familiar with. He's well known in the SaaS and tech space, and so really you often get asked in my position, what is it? How do some people close deals faster than others? How do some walk in a room and command it? How are some people in an M&A transaction and they manage to pull the deal their way and so on? So any situation, or even in relationships. And I've studied this for decades, and I looked at my own life and business, and when it went my way and when it didn't. And Justin and I met at a point where, we were kind of converging in that sense, and he was looking at his past, and you start to recognize patterns that the way that you behaved in those situations and the way you carried yourself was different to the way many others do. So in terms of selling, it's about how you carry yourself in terms of the way you respond to people, the way that you kind of subordinate in the sense of not becoming a vendor versus holding your authority. So, but it you can see it in everything, and it kind of builds on the work of people like Oren Klaff, Robert Greene, 48 Laws of Power. But it's a really practical, applicable manual or manuscript for how you would apply that to the real world. So, it's been really helpful to a lot of people.
Where can we find your book?
Amazon.com.
Okay, great. When you're engaging with senior decision makers, PE firms, founders, executives, how do you structure the sales process to actually close?
So, good question. So, I think when you've been doing this as long as I have, and I was having a conversation with a client about this just today. So when I'm teaching a sales process, there's frameworks and there's certain silos and things that I would advise. So, I have a 10-step sales process, and a conversion process, but I feel like you transcend that. So when you've been doing it long enough, you transcend it, and it's not really a sales process. It's not really a closing motion at all. It's it's organic, so every call for me, every situation for me is different. And ultimately, I'm not looking to see whether I can sell or close someone. I'm looking to see if there's a fit, if I actually want to work with them, if we like one another, if there's enough synergy. So I'm actually filtering and sifting for compatibility, which I think is different to a low ticket, high volume type, SaaS or tech or product type sale, which you're just trying to close. So I think when you move from that and there's kind of a detachment from the outcome, it doesn't matter to me whether it closes or it doesn't. That's kind of how I think about it. It becomes very organic. But when I'm teaching it, it's very different because people need to learn how to sell, which is not an easy skill.
I can extrapolate from that what I read about in your website, zero persuasion. The phrase zero persuasion. How do you achieve that?
Well, I think, first of all, the mindset of not needing the sale is crucial. So even if you really need it, I've had people say to me, yeah, that's okay, but what if you really need the business? So I say, well, then you need to be detached from the outcome even more. It's hard to do, but a prospect can sense neediness and can sense attachment to the sale. It just comes through in everything we do. So to be able to apply zero pressure is effectively, it's in the way that you structure your language. My calls to action are not heavy-handed sales tactics. Have we got a deal? What do you want to do next? Shall we work together? There's no high pressure sale. It's always, look, go away, think about it, talk to somebody, talk to your wife, talk to your partner, speak to some people who've worked with me, let's see if there's a fit. So there's just zero pressure, and my follow-ups are very much, if this is not the right time for you to do it, don't feel like you have to do it. So I'm all about that, and I just think that perversely and paradoxically, it's far more attractive.
That's a great takeaway for me, to be detached when I want something, to be able to step away a little bit. That's interesting. That's very interesting. What's your biggest obstacle with Vanquish right now? Do you have any challenges ahead?
None whatsoever. I think, well, that's a lie, because I think we all face a common enemy or friend at the moment, and I think it's the dreaded AI word that we mentioned at the beginning. So I think we're all in this uncertain time where We wonder what will happen with AI. My clients wonder what will happen with AI, and so naturally that their problems become my problems because I spend most of my time thinking through how to solve their problems. So there's a bunch of uncertainty around AI, and I think the biggest issue is that I did a workshop last week talking about AI in client acquisition specifically, and obviously the algorithms on social platforms like LinkedIn and the whole filters with regulations on things like Google have just massively clamped down. So recently we've just seen so many changes with LinkedIn, for example, where the algorithm recognizes patterns in automation and tooling and so on, and it's just so sloppy and so noisy. So it's not, it's easier to stand out when you're a human and you do the work in a thoughtful, considered way. But the bigger issue is the platforms are clamping down because they monetize users, so they don't want to isolate users by having them spammed and hit with AI. So it's obviously making it harder to stand out, for clients to stand out. So we'll see where that goes.
And forecasting ahead, the next few years, do you have some opportunities for Vanquish that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so the other side of what I do, so obviously the consulting is one part of it. The other part is I still practice what I preach, so I'm still operating my own portfolio company. So we roll up pre-private equity companies. So typically they're similar. They're expertise oriented businesses, but we roll those up and consolidate. Sometimes the founders stay in there, and operate with us, and so we're having a lot of fun with that. So I see tons of opportunities for that. There's a bunch of sort of retirement age guys, maybe 20 years older than me, who are looking to get out. So I see there's tons of opportunity there, and that's a lot of fun for us, that side of the business.
That's great. Well, it's great talking to you. I really enjoy your insights. If people want to find out more about you, see what you do, learn about you, where should they go?
So vanquishconsulting.io give you a bit about the business. My LinkedIn handle, Jonny Staker, JONNYSTAKER. The Frame on Amazon.com, or just Google my name. I think there's only one Jonny Staker that Google's up, so I'm quite lucky there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll put all the links in the description. Thank you so much, Jonny, for joining us today. We really appreciate it on Consulting Leaders.
Yeah, thank you, John. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.